Hi and welcome today. My name is Lisa and I'm looking forward to sharing with you a little bit about the festival of Samhain. That's what it can be pronounced, Samhain, which is the ancient third and final harvest festival in the Wheel of the Year, which is a series of 8 festivals or high holy days that in their totality over a year represent the cycle of life from like conception, winter solstice, over like the springtime into summer solstice, the peak, and then back down within again to death or ending before a new beginning can take place. And in all of this, Samhain marks the third harvest festival. It's kind of the time where we let everything fall away that is no longer needed or that we don't want in our life anymore. And in this video today, I'll share a little bit about the themes and the meaning and the rituals that you can do at this point in time, or the rituals that I love to do. Samhain, when is it celebrated? It used to be a lunar festival. Like, it comes from the Celtic and Germanic tribes who celebrated and honored this Wheel of the Year. And in that, they celebrated it during the either 11th dark moon or 11th full moon of the year. There were different ways to celebrate, and it would always start at sunset and go through the night, because we first have to let go before something new, like a new day, can begin. And in today's time, where we use the solar calendar, many people celebrate it on October 31st to November 1st, which has come partly due to Christianity spreading and taking over the traditional high holy days. And so Christianity combined it with their All Saints' Day on November 1st. On which they remember all the saints there are in Roman Catholic Christian belief. So this is like, today we often know Samhain as Halloween, which was brought from the Irish immigrants over to the US and which is now coming back to Europe from the US as Halloween. And this is basically the setup of this time. Now, why do we celebrate Samhain in the first place? It is the third and final harvest festival. The first was Lunasa, then Mabon, or the autumn equinox, and now Samhain. By now, most of the gifts of nature have already been harvested and stored, and it was at this time of year paramount for the people to start making preparations for winter. So that they would actually make it through. And at this time, the Celtic and Germanic tribes would hold large gatherings with lots of food and drinks, like a last celebration of nature before the harder winter months would come. And during these gatherings, they would discuss what needed to be discussed. For example, what livestock needed to be slaughtered to make it through the year, through the winter. Court was held, laws were made, marriages arranged. And for them, basically, this was the beginning of a new year. And it is also said that the veils to the other world are thinner than usual around this time. And so we do have a very, or let's say, an easier connection to our ancestors, to those who have walked this earth before us. And it's easier to connect with them. And I believe that this whole thing about the other world and demons coming over stems from that at this time we also can access our subconscious more easily, and all the demons and ghosts that lurk there. And so we are invited to actually seek out the darkness and to find the medicine in intentional endings at this time. So we lose the fear of death that we so often have in the societies we've grown up in. This blocking out of the fact that everything is coming to an end, but the end doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing. And we can see that in nature, because the energetic quality of this time, of the time around Samhain, is that nature is preparing for the winter rest and hibernation. So the migratory birds are heading south. The animals are preparing their cave or wherever they want to hibernate. The leaves and the trees and plants are taking their juices back into their roots to be stored for the new time in spring. And outwardly, it totally looks as if nature was dying, but the processes are continuing underground, basically, where we can't see. It's hidden from our eyes. So we think nature is dying, while there is just so much happening in the earth, in the ground, in the soil. There is a decomposing and a composting of the leaves and everything that has fallen down. And earth basically knows how to recycle. And I love that, because we don't have to do anything. And earth knows exactly how to decompose and recycle so that new nutrients are going to be available in spring for the plants to grow again. And for us as humans, this is a great example that now is the time to look within, to even reassess our life, looking at the different areas in our life and evaluating, what is it that I want to keep and continue? And what do I want to let go of? Where do I maybe need to admit that there has been an ending, like a relationship, a friendship that has ended? And where do I need to admit and let that go? And also, of course, allow the emotions that come with that fact that something is ending. And I personally, as I follow my personal menstrual cycle as well, this time is comparable to the time right before menstruation, like the premenstrual time, the few days before you start bleeding, and the bleed, because what happens there is this letting go as well. Like our body is shedding on all levels, on a physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual level, shedding everything that isn't necessary any longer, that isn't needed, that isn't good for us anymore. We, as I shared before, we don't even have to do anything for it. We can just trust. And I say just, I know that just trusting and being patient can be very hard for humans, myself included, but we can trust that nature is doing her thing, be it in our body or nature outside. She knows what she does, and she knows what needs to be let go of right now, so that there is space for something new. And if you would like to honor this time of year in your life, you can do that in your day-to-day life very easily by cooking stews with lots of colorful autumn vegetables, or holding a tea ceremony for yourself, making sure that you get enough sleep, maybe snuggling up in warm blankets, taking a bath, because the weather is getting so much cooler now. You can light candles or a fire in a fireplace or a fire bowl, because fire has a very cleansing and protective nature, and you can even ask fire to burn away everything that's no longer good for you at this point in your life. And of course, going outside, enjoying nature walks, maybe even taking a walk in the fog, because November days can be very foggy, and still there is beauty in that. So going out and finding the beauty in that. And something that may seem obvious, but that we very often don't give ourselves permission to, is allowing the sad and melancholic thoughts to come up, or emotions to come up. Permission to sigh, to moan, to let our shoulders drop if we just feel exhausted by life, which can very easily happen at this time, and it's completely okay. There is nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with you for being tired of life sometimes. But allowing this moment of pause and reflection is important. If we look at the themes of this time of Samhain, they are similar to a few things I've shared before. Like the major theme is letting go and ending. Because let's be honest, there is this myth outside in society that constant everlasting growth is possible and like always progressing and moving forwards. And that is a myth. That is a lie. It's an illusion, because even growth, like everything in nature, growth happens cyclically too. And there need to be periods where we pause, where we retreat, where we reflect and let go, because only when we let go will there be space for something new, for new ideas, for new inspiration. And so in order for growth to be sustainable and regenerative, sometimes the growth happens slower. Just because we are on the downside of this cycle doesn't mean we move backwards. It's just a slower progression than like in summer peak, for example. And I believe it's so difficult for us to accept that because our society is death averse. We try to not think about death. We try to suppress anything that comes with death, for example, emotions that are difficult to cope with. And yeah, we don't honor the endings that happen in everyday life, because every time you experience a change, you experience a mini death, because one version of you, or one part of you dies to have room for another version of you to emerge. And I love this cyclical growth. It's so beautiful. And then the other big theme of this time is, of course, darkness, introspection, and transformation, because the darkness is increasing outside. The days are getting shorter, it's getting cooler outside. And with that, we are also asked to look within at our shadows. And with shadows, I simply mean those aspects of ourselves that we usually try to suppress or not look at, because we fear they might overtake, might take over control, or because we fear them because society has told us they are not welcome out there, or for any other reasons. That's what I mean with shadows. And now's the time to really look at them, become clear where that happens, where, for example, a dynamic is playing out, and what we would like to do about it. And it's also time to look at our inner strengths and resources, because we hold so much power and so much goodness in us. And when we kind of suppress the shadows, we also suppress the light. We can't have one without the other. So when we look at our shadows, we will also find our light, our strength, our resources. Because when you think of a night sky, the stars are best seen when everything around you is dark. And so likewise, your own inner light is most accessible or easily seen when around you there is darkness. And don't worry, I do have a little ritual that you can try out to help you with befriending the darkness, so to speak. And then the third big theme is about honoring our ancestors. And in indigenous cultures, and also in many Southeast Asian countries, this honoring the ancestors is just a natural part of daily life. They will always put some sweets or some incense sticks or something up to either appease the ancestors or simply remember them, because they have come before us and their blood runs through our veins too. And now I do understand that depending on your family situation, the thought of honoring your like bloodline, like blood relatives, ancestors, can be repulsing. I personally come from two sides of my family with very dysfunctional relationships, with emotionally immature to emotionally abusive relationships. And I have made peace with it because I understand that they probably haven't had a role model. Like they haven't learned better. So, and they may not be able to develop this empathy and compassion for themselves and for others in themselves. And so they just pass on these unhealthy relationship patterns. And this is not an excuse, but it helps me understand and develop compassion for them, that they also, with the way they were brought up and the resources that were available to them, they did their very best. And that, like, all humans always do their very best. And again, as it is not to excuse any things that have happened, but it's allowing me to find some peace, to make my peace with it. And we can, of course, also, and that's what I used to do, is think of the ancestors who are not my blood, but who are spiritual teachers that have passed away, or just inspiring people like Gandhi, who I personally, like, I've read books about him and his teachings, and it's just, it speaks to my soul. And so he, for example, would be a person I would remember on such a day like this, on Samhain. And if you would like to celebrate Samhain yourself, I do have a few ideas on personal and also group rituals. And one of the first of the personal rituals is inviting in the darkness. As I shared earlier, that can be hard to do on your own, but it's definitely worthwhile. Taking some time and maybe turning all the lights off, blowing out the candles, sitting down in complete darkness, breathing, and then allowing the darkness to enter you with every breath, to stream into you, to fill you up, and notice and observe which emotions or thoughts come up when you do that, and letting them be what they are, not judging them. And maybe even being inquisitive, like, what kind of emotion is it? Where do I sense it? Does the emotion or the thought have a shape or a size when it's where it is? Does it move? And maybe even asking the darkness to transform and heal this what has come up and shown itself to you. And then a second ritual that you could do in combination with the first is the violet flame of transmutation, because that flame is always available to us. And so inside of your mind's eye, you can visualize, or you can simply sense this violet flame of transmutation, and how you step into that flame and ask it to burn away everything that's old and outdated, that you no longer want to carry, and that is burdensome to you, and just letting that flame burn everything away so you can start afresh into a new cycle with renewed strength. And then one other important ritual would be taking stock and planting seeds. So you can simply get some pen and paper, get yourself a blanket, make yourself cozy, get a hot beverage of your choice, and then let the year pass before your mind's eye and ask yourself the following questions. What went well this year? And what didn't go quite as well? Have I lived in tune with my own and nature's rhythm? Who or what entered my life? And what of it, or who of them, would I like to keep and nurture? What has come to an end, and what do I want to say goodbye to? For example, habits, life circumstances, people. And then afterwards turning to, what would I like to have happen in the different areas of my life in the next year? Which changes do I want to make? How do I want to feel next year in the different areas of my life? And then in case you celebrate the 12 Holy Nights, which is a ritualistic time between December, I celebrated between December 24th and January 6th, take the answers to these questions, especially the seeds for next year, as the foundation for the ritual of 13 wishes. And I will link all of that in the description of the show notes, because the 12 Holy Nights are the moment where we start making the wishes for next year more concrete. And yeah, right now it's more a pondering and percolating and just thinking about the seeds that you would like to plant for next year, but not so concrete yet. And in case you would like to celebrate in a group, you could, for example, do a fire ritual. Meet together by the fire with a fire bowl or at a campfire, lighting the fireplace or simply some candles. And then sitting in circle and one after the other, whispering your worries into the fire, kind of handing your worries over to the fire and asking fire to let them burn away. And in case any grief or sadness rises, or melancholic thoughts, or even the wish to hold on to the past, which is completely normal, that's okay. Let these feelings and thoughts be present and maybe even hand them over to the fire as well, or ask the fire to transform them to make room for new beginnings. And as a last ritual, group ritual, you could also remember together. Sometimes it's nice to come together in a group of friends or family members to think about the people who have passed on together and like talk about funny stories about them, but just so we are not so alone with it in our memories. It can be a lovely group ritual. I hope that what I've shared with you was interesting and that you enjoy Samhain. I have written an article which I will link below, where you can find more information, even more rituals or ideas of what you can do. And if you would like to stay connected and maybe attune to this more cyclical way of living, feel free to subscribe to Soul Mail, which is my weekly-ish personal letter to you, where I lead you through the cycle, because we go through a cycle every month, especially as women or people who bleed, and to support you in that and to have an easier time transitioning through the darkness so that we can enjoy the light even more and even more deeply, then feel free to sign up for that. I am looking forward to seeing you there, to writing to you. If you've got any questions or comments or even rituals that you enjoy celebrating at this time, feel free to reach out. I always love learning more about these festivals and what the different people do to celebrate them. And I wish you a beautiful day. Much love.